to Linux Weekly, daily Wednesdays, where we take that midweek break from gaming to cover the other Linuxy news going on in this beautiful world. And we're going to try to get you out in under 30 minutes or more, guaranteed. Coming up this week, Debian contributor Dmitry Bogatov has been detained again. And I should insert clever Russian joke here. I'm sorry, I probably should have done that. An MSI learns a valuable Linux lesson. Yeah, and that lesson, don't tango with us.
OBS Studio finally gets back on board with the PPA. You can now get most of the nice new stuff without having to build it from source. And AMD announced the RX 500 line, with the RX 580 using the exact same GPU as the RX 480.
Tech journalists take another shot at scaring people while generating clicks by exposing a vulnerability that was fixed long ago, and it's basically unexploitable. We also have a look at the new features in Ubuntu 17.04, which is not really a lot of things, but there are some exciting changes planned for the future.
Okay, let's get right into this, because this is a statement concerning the arrest of Dmitry Bogatov. The Debian project is concerned to hear that one of our members has been arrested in Soviet Russia. It's kind of getting back to Soviet Russia, if we're being honest. Maths teacher, professor, Mr. Bogatov, he was arrested for basically running a TorX node, but it's Russia, so they threw in some extra stuff. Debian has taken let's just go ahead and nuke these keys so it no longer has access, and I think that's very smart of them. So because what are our thoughts on this? I mean, other than this would probably happen in Russia of all places. At least he didn't get disappeared. Kudos on Debian for taking care of the security on that. But Strider, you're really big on the Tor thing. You're like, don't use the Tors, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before when we talked about Tor, and it proved this once again, especially in a country like in Russia, that using Tor is more dangerous than helpful, especially when you run an exit node. That is the real danger. I mean, this guy, he did nothing wrong except, which isn't even wrong itself, but he ran this Tor exit node, and he was accused of inciting mass riots and terrorism and stuff like this. And he wasn't even at home when the messages, the riots inciting messages were sent. He was shopping or something else. And I don't think they wanted to make him disappear or anything like this, because I think Russia wanted to set an example saying, okay, if you use Tor, you will get into trouble. And, if you're a honest man, you don't want to get arrested. Even if you're going to be released soon after, you don't want to be arrested. So, yeah, it's just, okay, don't use Tor from the Russian government.
No, do it in Portugal.
One of the biggest issues. I was about to head over to Space Portugal on that topic is definitely with Tor. One of the main reasons I don't use it, which speaks a lot, especially since I'm currently residing in the North Americas, says a lot about their government. I was like, that just paints a big target on me. He was like, go take a look at everything he's doing, but maybe Space Portugal has a different.
Yeah, because, honey, Space Portuguese government don't care. They just don't care. They don't know most of what they say regarding any tech-related subject, so they don't really care whether or not you're running an exit node for Tor or whether you're hosting a peer-to-peer file server. Just saying. But yeah, no, as long as the only thing you might get in trouble here in Portugal for is if you have a regular home user internet account, as it were. If your ISP sees a lot of traffic, outgoing traffic coming from your end, they'll go, oh, you're running a server. Yeah, no, you can't do that on a regular account. You have to upgrade to the business connection. So yeah, go ahead and do it. And as for Dmitry himself, we hope that Russian authorities don't really follow through with this. And okay, sure, they they've already had their time in the spotlight. Yeah, it's not cool to run that in Russia. Please don't.
Not in Russia. Would advise against running a Tor exit nodes in the UK, in the US, in France, in China, of course.
Yeah.
Like pretty much anywhere in the Middle East. Yeah.
Okay, so from serious news,
countries.
really serious news, onto, well, non-news, if we're being honest. The Register earlier, last week, they read a little
with
bit
this
of a
graphic, man. Ian, I know you and I love you, Ian, but seriously, that looks like a prop that I would wear for our gaming show on Saturday. I mean,
didn't you though? But yeah, no. This was just a bit of non-news because there was a UDP exploit that you could basically get kernel level access to whatever remote system was receiving certain types of UDP connections. That was fixed a long time ago. But then a slight programming oops happened, and that exploit was, well, I don't want to say viable, but it was a thing again. So they ran this, and the CVE, it's the very first link you can see in the Register article. It was updated. It was last updated on April 4th because that's when it was fixed. So by the time that the article came out, which was on April 14th, it was no longer an issue.
Yeah, it wasn't, but I mean, it scares people, and scaring people generate clicks. So it's good for the tech journalists. And of course, I mean, Linux users being who they are, like paranoid people most of the time. I mean, it's always funny to watch them scream and run around in total panic, just as everything was on fire. And no, I mean, it hasn't been an issue, and I don't think anyone has been able to exploit this, actually, because once you've exploited the first thing and it required you to run a special instructions like MSG peek, I don't even know what that is, then the attacker had to run another exploit, which was very unlikely to happen anyway. So
yeah, it's one of the things I was clearly looking at is, I was going to say maybe this might affect Android, but, it could have with the older kernels, but I honestly couldn't think of anything that used MSGP that wasn't like Frank's whatever app doing the thing. But multimedia production is back and updated.
Oh,
with Ubuntu.
Are you saying that tool that we use regularly nowadays got a bit of an update?
Nope.
Yes. No. Okay. No, this is OBS Studio. If you have been, well, if you're not Ven with his wizardry level skills of FFmpeg magic, you probably appreciate the OBS project because they created a nice little GUI for FFmpeg. That's what it is. And you can do everything with clicks of buttons and sliders. It's really, really nice. But their PPA for Ubuntu had been a little neglected because the last update before April 13th was from 2016, the 28th of October, to be precise. So yeah, you had version 0.16 back then, and now you have version 0.18, which comes with some nice features, including the buffering option. You can set a little keyboard shortcut if you have OBS running in the background. Even if you're not recording, you could just hit that button and it will record, it will create a file with those last 5 minutes of footage that you weren't recording because it kept a buffer of it. So that's neat. And it works. The real bit of news here is that it works because that stream I did yesterday with Salt and Sanctuary was done with version 0.18. Now, one thing you don't get with this version is NVEnc support, because they didn't build it against FFmpeg with NVEnc enabled. So even if you have NVEnc enabled on your system's version of NVEnc, it's not going to work.
Matthew, whatever will we do? How will we get NV encode enabled in our version of OBS? I do not know. Please help me.
Yeah,
This is where you're supposed to be plugging the project that him and I went together and did, and I can continue talking over you because you kind of blew your point right there. Hey, man, Strider and I got together and made a little script that will build the source on basically, I know it works on 1404 LTS, 1604 LTS, and it probably works on 1710 on any Ubuntu. Go check that out. There'll be a link for that in the show note. It works. It's a bit great. But Strider, you definitely didn't think this was worth upgrading to.
I mean, if you go with the compiling route and you run the script we wrote, and it's working already, then I mean the changelog is not that impressive. So if you've got working software and you don't want to risk losing everything, just like stay on your version. I mean, it's nothing like really mind blowing.
It's new functionality.
There are small functionalities like new stuff, but I don't know. I haven't tried rebuilding the script. Maybe it runs like out of the box. I might have to update it a little bit. So
I built it like 2 weeks ago. Everything's a bit crooked. No need to map it out.
Okay, so next thing we have something called Street Complete, which is so if you use Google Maps, you have the feedback feature of Google Maps, where they will ask you for like is this information correct, or what's the opening hours of this store or something like this, and this is the equivalent of this for OpenStreetMap. So it's a very neat feature. The only thing that annoys me it is a mobile app just for that. So it's a very specific target audience, and that's what's I don't like.
Why does it necessarily bother? Because it's a mobile app. Would you rather? Do you normally take your desktop out with you when you're?
No,
checking?
It's not. It's not that it's a mobile app. That's not the problem. The problem is that it's that app that does only give feedback to OpenStreetMap, and it would be neat to have like a full featured working product, just like Google Maps, that uses OpenStreetMap as a backend. And it would have like travel itineraries, and it would have the feedback just like on Street Complete, and it would have all the features that you can find in all these different OSM products, but as one unified product. And I almost started building such a product, but I stopped myself just in time because I have already.
I can imagine the headaches that being an active maintainer of a map app would require. And I remember we actually talked about, No Maps a while back, that they ran into issues because they were using another map service that started restricting the usage of like the tile art that you would get, like that map view without being the actual pictures, just the tile art. And then No Maps changed to OpenStreetMap. So maybe now that there's even more people using it, this can get fixed. That would be nice.
I think it's definitely a neat piece of kit, and you can still play around with it and use it online. I think it's good to get out there. Especially, I think everyone's had like the Google Map experience. If you're like, that's wrong, because you know
Yep.
where it's supposed to go, and it's like detouring you around. I'll see it sometimes with, driving directions, and yeah, it'd be nice to be able to go in there and correct that because, Google really doesn't care. But hey, not a gaming show, but we got to talk about some gaming below. Jonathan Blow, that is, creator of Braid and some other games. Anyway, why are we talking about this? You might say, riddle me that, Fed. Well, he kind of deleted the original tweet, what he was talking about, which was something along the lines of, let's see, I can't really quote him on it, because then again, he deleted it. I wasn't even going to bring this up till you deleted the tweet, invoking the Streisand effect. He's like, I try to install Linux on a laptop every 2 years, but it always fails. What distro should I try? This year, in 2017, to, I kind of got back to him right here. I was like, okay, every 2 years. So I mathed out. I was like, what Moon device did you have in 2015 that failed the Linux? Because I'm genuinely curious. And it gets better. Oh, it gets so much better. To which he retorted, like, all 3 laptops that I tried. This is not some rare experience either. Okay. Let me just get this out of my system because it's like, personally, you'll see these links in the show notes. I didn't know where to go, so just go to System 76. But, Mr. Blow basically said, he got on Twitter, famously known for not liking Linux so much. He basically wrote, paraphrasing, Linux sucks, am I right? Huh? Where are my peeps at? Forgetting that it's 2017. He was expecting @replies agreeing in unison, but this was not to be. For it was, in fact, 2017, and even the little Winbros on Twitter, because it's hard to find these tweets since he killed his main tweet and his @reply thing's all jacked up. Even the little Winbros mocked poor Blow for being unable to install Linux on not 1, but 3 Linux laptops. No. After realizing this, what did he do? It was kind of brilliant. He was like, I thought everyone was going to be like, yeah, Linux sucks. Everyone, yeah, don't bother with Linux. And everybody's like, really? You can't get Linux working on a laptop in 2017? Sounds like a picnic. He moved the field goal. He's like, well, that's not what I meant. What I meant is I need a version of Linux that installs where I don't have to configure anything. That's what he came back and said. And at that point, I honestly couldn't tell whether or not he was trolling or just being stupid on purpose. Because you know what? I don't care if it's Windows, Mac, Linux, AIX, HP UX, BOS, SkyOS. That's all.
Haiku.
Let's throw in some haiku. I don't know any operating system that you can install on a blank box and not have to configure anything because it doesn't exist, Brad.
It does. It's called Ubuntu Mate 1704.
No, it doesn't. You're imagining things.
You still need to configure something.
Well, you can change the icon theme, sir. But
no, you will still need to configure something. Trust me, I did.
I remember tweets from Blow like several years ago when he was already complaining about Linux. And yeah, it seems that he has never been really good at using Linux. And it really makes me wonder why he even bothers. Because he didn't do the port of Braid. Iculus took care of it. And why not hire him again? I mean, it was a very good port. And the good thing about this, if he's trying to get Linux working and is going into that kind of trouble, maybe we can try hope for a native port of the Witness. I mean, preferably before I get to finish the game using Wine, because that's one of the games I try every 2 weeks, and it's making visible progress every time.
Yeah, about the Witness specifically, he said that he hates OpenGL. Says it's a mess, it's horrible to work with, and he doesn't want to do it. So he actually said that if he ever decided to bring the game to Vulkan, and if his next projects use Vulkan, he'd consider it. Which means no, he won't.
Well, maybe we'll be able to play it on our brand new MSI motherboard. With
blinky RGB lights.
I'm telling you, man, that B350M Mortar Arctic Yellow Swag Extreme.
Ryzen AM4.
Oof. Yeah, that's definitely a thing. But yeah, basically what blew out here, man. Turned out dude bought a new Mobo, for his Ryzen and all that. It had some Yellow Swag and Doritos, the blinky RGB, man. So, you can be cool, man, and impress all the kids. Unfortunately, the I/O chip used for that was the Nuvoton, and, dude wanted his RGB color swag, man. Mm-hmm. So he called up, what is it, Nuvotron?
MSI?
I'm talking about the name of the chip.
Let's see. Nuvoton. Yes.
Nuvoton. He rang them up, and they're like, man, we made that for MSI. Call MSI. He called MSI, and MSI was like, shrug emoticon, not a problem. Fortunately, what he says in his blog post, he's like, hey, man, I'm a student, so I get the free Windows. He actually found a use for Windows 10. I think that is the most impressive thing out of this. But the second best thing is he got Windows 10, cracked open a copy of RW Everything, and just a little bit later, he was able to produce something called MSI RGB. And that is going to control your little headers there, so you can have all the pretty. I think that is pretty cool. Strider, again, as with most things, you were completely nonplussed by this.
I didn't get it. So, yeah, I mean, I'll pass on this one. But the only thing I noted
But
is...
look at it.
Yeah,
It's
cool.
pretty.
You can change the color of a circle on your motherboard. Yay. I mean, this seems to be like a lot of effort for basically not a lot. But I'm just not surprised that the guy runs a blog powered by Haskell. That's the only thing I noticed.
Okay, that's an entire field day at the psychiatrist's office. Let's not go into that. But as for the MSI thing that he did, he starts by saying that he basically reverse engineered the motherboard. He didn't. He reverse engineered the controller, or the software, the firmware of that controller, and the software that it can interact with. Because like Ben already said, he booted into Windows 10, got the MSI motherboard app that would let you change the color of that those LEDs, and he figured out how to do it. And he says that he actually managed to get more functionality out of it. He could have different hues of color coming from those LEDs than the official MSI app would let you have it. So he didn't just reverse engineered it, he improved on it. But he said...
I also noted on his Twitter that he advised people against installing the MSI tool because it was using something called read physical address in its public API. So maybe there's some vulnerability in the Windows version of the stuff.
The long and short of the story, I'm going to put a bow on this so we can continue going on. Either MSI was being a bit derp, which, hey man, I got 2 MSI video cards, even my 980 was an MSI. They're being a bit derp by just not giving them specs or helping them out a little bit, or they're being incredibly clever. They're like, you know what, Linux users, or, you know, if we just sit back and wait, he'll write a Linux utility
we'll
for
have
us.
New source code for our stuff.
It'll just pop right up. Phishing?
All right. Yes, phishing. So you remember, if you've been a web user for the past few years, there's always stories of like websites that look legit, but if you pay attention, like the A or the L, it's not exactly an A or an L in that address bar. Yeah, those are not actually ASCII characters. Those are like Cyrillic or any other bitmap UTF-8 or UTF-16 character that can look like the regular ASCII character. So the browsers, most browser developers, a while back, they introduced a little something called Punycode. So it replaces the Unicode with just its equivalent ASCII character, and if it doesn't exist, it creates a little string of it's actually XN. It's basically the XN dash dash and then the coordinates for that particular character in the ASCII table. So that's fine. It worked until someone figured out that there was a little bit of a loophole. According to a Chinese researcher, the loophole relies on the fact that if someone chooses all characters for a domain name from a single foreign language character set, resembling exactly the same as the targeted domain, then browsers will say, oh, okay, so it's all in the same language, and will give you the domain in what it would be in that foreign language instead of the Punycode format. That's a problem. That's how phishing happens. That's how a lot of bad things can happen. Now, to be fair, right now, the only browsers that he found that were vulnerable to this were Chrome, Firefox, and Opera. Internet Explorer, Microsoft Edge, Apple Safari, Brave, and Vivaldi are not vulnerable to this. It's like, how?
Maybe because they don't support Unicode domain names. I wouldn't be surprised for Internet Explorer. I would be surprised if it did support the Unicode domain names. But yeah, I found people on Twitter blaming the Unicode domain names themselves. Like they said, okay, we don't need a Unicode in domain names. We are fine using ASCII and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, I mean, everyone screamed back at them saying they were like,
yeah, not everyone speaks in English. Not everyone uses the old Western-style characters.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the Unicode domain names are not the problem. The problem is how they are handled in the browsers. So there should be something that prevents this kind of problem. And it has already been patched in Chrome, but it's just a workaround. And they are currently working on the proper fix. Yeah. And it still hasn't been patched in Firefox.
Okay, the takeaway from this is patch your Chrome and fix it in Firefox, which is you can about config, disable.
Config, look for puny code and disable it.
Seems legit. Stratter, tell everyone why they should not install Ubuntu 17.04 at all cost.
Oh, you totally should. I mean, there's nothing really new and exciting about it. The only
I just love
really
this picture.
New,
it's got Patty's first.
The only new feature
Ubuntu install terminal
that you'll get when you get a new install, not when you upgrade, is that you'll get swap files instead of swap partitions. That's pretty much it. Other than that, it's just like new versions of software you already have, such as the kernel, which is 4.10. The Ox old server, LibreOffice, GNOME, which is almost 3.24, yeah, and Firefox and all that kind of stuff. And you get, of course, a new wallpaper. That's basically it. I mean,
you did it. Sold.
More purple and orange wallpapers. Woohoo!
Yeah. And I've been okay with getting new Ubuntu releases with, that is basically updates to software already run. And we haven't seen a lot of new features since really they started working on Ubuntu Touch and their conversions thing, because they were too
finally,
busy.
You actually get Firefox 52 by default with this one. Took them a while.
But yeah, you usually get the latest version of Firefox with pretty much any Ubuntu version you run. So yeah, that would be expected. And I expect that with Canonical stepping away from phones and conversion, we might finally see some new stuff on the desktop. Or maybe not. I mean, they will probably focus on LXD, the containers technology, and snaps for the most part. Maybe stuff on the desktop, I don't know. Maybe they will just ship standard GNOME desktop and not do anything. Who knows?
Who knows, man? I mean, I'm definitely going to sit back and wait until like an LTS comes out, because this is definitely not it. Even notice that Will Cook confirmed that the Ubuntus will be moving to Wayland after burning resources like it was.
Developing their own.
Right. And okay. Good. I'm saying I'm looking positive side here as I'm trying to turn over a new leaf organ. But yeah, okay. Outside of that, it's new shiny. If you don't have a production box, hey man, set everything on fire. Write us back and let us know what's going on. Oh. Okay.
Well, speaking of setting things on fire, there was a leak earlier in the week about the new RX 500 series, and they have actually been officially announced now, because I guess AMD was like, okay, fine, people already know about it. Here it is. The embargo is lifted. You can push out the reviews. And fine folks at PC Per, Mr. Ryan Shrout, ran the RX 580 through the paces. Now, that's the high-end, I hesitate to call it that, but it's the highest-end graphics card that AMD has right now, outside of
hey,
even
man,
the R9
you know
Fury.
It's high-end because they put 3 fans on it for no reason.
No, that's admittedly, that's one of those Gigabyte WindForce ones. It's similar to my 1080, actually, except in the performance, because the performance here is very similar to the RX 480, because it's the exact same GPU. It's still using Polaris 10, the exact same GPU that was in the RX 480, but it has a higher clock, it has more CUDA cores. No, it doesn't. It has exactly the same texture units, not CUDA cores, those are NVIDIA only. It has the exact same texture units and ROP units. They will have both 4 and 8 gig memory versions. The memory clock is now stuck at 8,000 megahertz, while the RX 480 had the 7,000 and 8,000 version. The memory bandwidth is still 256, which means you get about 256 gigabytes per second out of those 8 gigs, which is good. Now, the TDP on the RX 580 is a bit higher than the RX 480 was. The RX 480 had a maximum TDP of 150 watts. This one is 185 watts. Now, if we take that into what it's currently going up against on the NVIDIA side, you get the GTX 1060. And on Windows, you can see that there's a couple of games, I think Hitman is actually one of them, where the RX 580 is slightly performing better than the 1060, but in most games, the 1060 is performing better. Just better. Now, admittedly, the MSRP for the 8 gigabyte version of the RX 580 is $240, while the MSRP for the GTX 1060 is $250. So you're saving about 10 if you want to take that chance, unless, of course, you're running Linux, at which point the performance delta makes it so that the GTX 1060 is always going to perform better. Strider?
Yeah, so I don't care a lot about AMD GPUs and all that stuff, but there's something I noticed is in their slides, they are benchmarking their next-gen GPU against the GTX 970, the GTX 750 Ti, and an Intel chipset. I just find this a bit sad.
They did. In that the private announcement that they had for the new line of GPUs, they showed some slides, and you can see those. There will be a link in the show notes where they do compare it with the 970 and the GTX 750 Ti. And there's probably a reason for that. They were comparing the RX 560, which is like, it's not the lowest end one, but it's almost. And there's a reason for that, because at that very similar price, you get the GTX 1050 Ti, which basically curbs it up and down the street repeatedly, regardless of what you're doing. So there's probably a reason they didn't want to compare it against
Probably
that.
not. Definitely with this. I mean, listen, this isn't an upgrade so much as it is a refresh of the product line. If you currently
Rebrand!
love the AMD and the thought of me getting a sentence out after I was quiet for so long, Pedro, would be, hey man, if you like the AMD and you already have a 480, save yourself the time, go buy a Sharpie, put a 5 on it. No one will ever know. And the benchmarks, if you didn't get that and you still want to buy it, pick it up. They're cheap. They do what they do. If you want to game, buy an NVIDIA card. One last story before we get out of here.
Yeah, so this one is more for the DevOps people here. This is from Docker, and they released something called the Moby projects. So basically what it does, it's a set of components made to build like new containers with Docker. And it's in between. There's like several components into this.
I just
Moby
know I'm
project.
going to
There's
have a
framework.
nightmare about mice and whales this evening. It's terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, I read their blog post, and what they need to do is get straight to the point, because I didn't really get what it did at first, and I had to go like through the GitHub.
You figured it out? Okay. What is it?
Yeah, it's a library and a framework to put together like new containers, and it's
Another
not
one?
for basic users of Docker. I mean, it's really for advanced users. And it seems like quite neat. It allows you to choose like this component, like this kernel or this logging system, and put them together in such a way that it will like give you like containers at the end. It's cool. It's something that would be reserved for Docker power users, probably. Not for, they say this they give a warning about this. It's not for learning Docker. It's not for like newcomers. But it's still a cool project. And the only thing I noticed I was really weirded out by this in the announcement. They really make a big deal about being open and open source and everything. Docker and all the technologies around it have always been open source. So sure, they do have some commercials, like products around, but most of it is already open source. Why are they making such a big deal about being open? I don't get it.
Any thoughts?
Me neither. Yeah, no, it's just the way to describe it is basically, if you know enough about Docker, using Moby, you can basically ship a fully containerized operating system if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm. What would be fun? What would be fun if we saw Docker as another alternative for Flatpak and snaps? That would be kind of... Okay, we have another one.
Yeah, I definitely looked at it. I mean, it's a neat project and all that. I was like, man, if I end up understanding this, I'll have to put it on my LinkedIn profile. So, no, let's just kind of back off that. But, hey, man, let's back towards the beautiful people who make this show possible.
Indeed, we have 101 beautiful, beautiful people kicking us a few shekels every single week.
You said they were Dalmatians. Quit lying to me, Pedro. You're killing me.
Whatever they are awesome. And we basically hate them all the same because that means we get to keep doing this over and over and over. And we're currently sitting at about $180-ish every single week. And if you are a Patreon, you will always get notified and get access of the live streams we do, and you can join our Discord general disarray chat box where you can basically talk with us all throughout the week, even while we're not doing a show. You also get some Patreon timed exclusives because they will not be forever Patreon exclusives. We don't really lock any content behind a wall. But say you don't like Patreon, and you want to kick us a few shekels some other way, linuxgamecast.com/support. It's got, it's got the link to the Patreon. It's got some Amazon affiliate links. It's got our Amazon wish list, the PayPal Donato buttons, and I see a QR code. What did you do, Ven?
First of all, I'm going to go back and cover a few things on the Patreon because you forgot some of the bullet points.
Yes, Mr. Vlaunir da Silva kicked us a few shekels. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That's our latest Patreon. Want to give that a love. Hey, Magic Internet Monies is apparently a thing, and I know a few people have been just, come on, Ben, get to it. But I did it. There it is. QR code, the wallet thingy. We tested it. Somebody was very kind, terribly mysterious stranger sent us a small little bit of coin, so I know, in fact, that the wallet does work. I also want to thank Trugs for helping me out last night, answering a few of the bit questions. But that's cool. We can now have a cryptocurrency. Maybe we could use that cryptocurrency to help build Studio 2.0. I think that would just be mental and awesome. So check your digital couches and see if you got some coins laying around. We can definitely put them to good use. And if you don't want to support us, that's fine. But get out there and support someone else who supports Linux. It's awesome. Okay, we are going to have to fly through this because we are way late on time. Slice of pie, 3 words or less.
Yum, yum.
Okay, so the first project is an IDE emulator. So parallel ATA.
Yeah, PATA.
Yeah, and it's kind of a neat thing. So it uses Raspberry Pi Zero as a main controller, but it also has a FPGA like to maintain like the state of ID, state like register and stuff like this. You can use it in pretty much any machine that uses IDE drives. That means like your old 286 DOS machine. This will work on it. And you can do all sorts of neat stuff.
Will this work with my Atari ST?
Probably, yes. If you have a PATA controller in your Atari ST, you could use that, yes. And you could like make the Raspberry Pi access the network and use the drive as a shared drive with like other computers and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you could have Dropbox on your Atari or Amiga if you wanted to.
So all right. So I guess now we can move right on. Apparently Nintendo hates money. What is this about, Strider?
So, as you may know already, the NES Classic, first it was really hard to get, and now they have completely stopped making it for some reason. I've read somewhere that they might release the SNES Classic. Not sure about this yet. This article says, okay, but yeah, they've stopped doing this, but you could make one with a Raspberry Pi.
Okay, that's definitely something you can do, and that's something we've covered like 9 times in Slice of Pie section.
Yeah,
so let's speed things up with a bit of an overclock.
Indeed, this one comes from Brazil and it's written in Portuguese. So I got the bullet points out of it. The original Pi was locked to 1500.
Wait a minute, is that a Peltier? Yes, it is.
Yep. That is a Raspberry Pi Zero being held by some rubber bands on a heatsink on some salt water, frozen salt water. Yeah, so...
Well, Pedro, you left out the solid state heat pump in between those two.
Yes. He actually gives you the part number if you want to have that one. It's one of the... it'll be in the show notes. It's fine. So he comments that the original Pi was locked to 1500 megahertz before those unlocks started to come around. Now, the Zero, even though it has the same SoC as the original Pi, just in a smaller package, does seem to have a few other differences, because the Zero is actually locked to 1600 megahertz, and using the old tricks to remove that limitation didn't really work, so he only managed to get it as high as 1600. Which, considering this is a Raspberry Pi Zero we're talking about, that's 2x increase in just overclocking. This is the current record for the Raspberry Pi itself, but it's not the current record for this particular SoC, because this SoC has a overclocking record of 1620 megahertz. In order to get up to 1600, he had to pull some extremes. He used an old Athlon 2600 heatsink, dunked it in frozen salt water, and it seems to have worked because it kept running temperatures, the running temperatures at around 15 Celsius. He also needed to up the voltage to 2.06, 2.07 volts to reach those 1600 megahertz. So you're going to need better USB cables if you're going to try this.
Okay, that sounds definitely like a thing. Pi go fast. Hey man, people want to talk to us?
Talk to us by going to linuxgamecast.com, hitting the contact button, filling the form, and picking LWDW off of the drop-downy thing. It's easy enough. And this week, actually, Michael didn't use the contact form. He left us a comment on YouTube. You can do that too if you must. He says, I use Genymotion to run Android apps on my Linux box of goodness. It's also a great tool for developing Android apps. Has a plugin for Android Studio, which is super easy. The ROMs available from Genymotion, of course, do not come with a Google Play service, but it is super easy to install. It's actually not super easy. There are a few very involved steps. I had a look at the tutorial and I said, nope. And he goes on by saying, what can you run on Genymotion? Everything. He plays Star Wars Force Arena, X-Wing Squadron Builder. Graphics are great. Performance is great. Cool. This is Michael Speth. We always have a little bit of feedback from him. And yeah, Genymotion. Apparently, it's a good.
Yeah, Genymotion. This is definitely what we were talking about. Was it last week, Strider? What were we talking about? That just
using that. There was this project that was really new that lets you run Android apps in a container as opposed to a virtual machine. I haven't retried it yet, but I mean, yeah. So I guess Genymotion is still the best option to run Android games on Linux. I mean, if someone knows any other option, I would like to know about them.
Well, I assume my UHD monitor runs Linux as picture-in-picture, so like a Chromecast. Awesome to run games on it. Okay, up next, Josh writes, hey man, is anybody else having a problem where Thunderbird often uses 90% or more of the CPU? I'd ask if it was a Mac specific issue, but I ran into a similar problem on Debian. Is it possible that this is a common problem? And I'm just the only one who likes to leave email clients open instead of, no, you're not. I do the same thing. Going through my email and closing the email client. P.S. Do you have to run a Mastodon? We talked about Mastodon last week because it was a thing last week. Server just to be able to use the, so no, that's one of the kind of brilliant things about Mastodon is it's federated and everyone can have their own server. You can join other servers and you can block servers that you don't want to hear anything from. But fortunately, you no longer have to worry about that. And that's been the entire geek news cycle and everyone's forgotten about it. No one's using it anymore.
No, I mean, and by everyone you mean yourself, right? Because there are still like lots of people using it. As for the Thunderbird thing, I have Thunderbird open almost all day with 6 mail accounts and several online calendars, and it runs just fine. I mean, it doesn't eat up any CPU or anything. So I would suggest that you check maybe your extensions if you have any. I don't know if you don't have any extensions that you have a problem on your setup.
There are a few instances where Thunderbird can use up a single thread because it's single threaded. That's the best it can do. It'll use 90% or about 100% of your thread if it's compressing. If you have a really big library of emails just kicking around in your inboxes, every now and again, it will trigger a little compression algorithm, and it will compress everything to use as little disk space as possible. While that's running, yeah, you're going to see a spike in CPU usage, but that's from someone who also has it open all day. The moment I start up my my box to the moment I shut it down at night, it's always running, and those are the only issues I've seen.
Yeah, I'll agree with the Katana in the chat realm right now. It's like, it will nom some RAM every now and then. It'll get hungry. And sometimes every now and then it will just like, I've seen it peg out a core once. Once.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what's going on? And I'm like, I'll tell you what's going on. Kill 9. Boom. News from orbit. And start it back up. And this is coming from somebody who has 14,000 emails in multiple, 14,000 plus. I'm starting on the low end on that. I got a lot of mail that I've never went back and deleted. But you had some closing words?
No, I mean...
Okay, that's going to do it for Linux Weekly Daily Wednesdays. It's kind of been awesome. Thanks. We do apologize again for staying so long, but I said guaranteed 30 minutes or more, and we delivered this week. Absolutely. In spade, almost in double. It's been brilliant. We'll see you next week. Actually, Pedro and I will be back Saturday for our gaming show. It's a bit more unhinged than that. But until then, if you want to talk to me, I'm at Vin Stone on Twitter and plus Vin Stone on that Google Plus thing that no one uses. Seriously, tell everyone no one uses it. It's a ghost town. Keep them out.
Seriously, absolutely nobody uses Google Plus. But if you do, for some reason, why would you? I am plus Pedro Mateos there. I totally don't use it every single day. I'm also on Twitter at unaccounted4. That one, I really don't use it.
Yeah, and I'm also on Twitter, and I sometimes use it at Strikor. Google Plus, of course, plus Mathieu Commandant. And also on Mastodon, you can find me at Strikor at Mastodon Rocks.
Okay, that's brilliant. Hey, everyone, send us all of your extra magic internet money so we can buy Strider some glasses so we all quit attacking this poor Mike.
Don't hit your pop filter.
Bye-bye.
It's too funny. Bye.
All right.
Lutris.com.
No, not .com, .net.
Oh, good.
Yay, we got you to say it, finally.
Yeah. Kind of brilliant. Wow, that was only... you don't want to know,
it was about 5 minutes short of an hour.
20 minutes over.
What? Wow, we went long.
Just a bit, Brad.
Big show, yeah.
We're gonna have to do some triage next week. We can't be.
Yeah, we need some trimming.
It's 10 minutes from an hour long show.